Salve te omnes! Welcome back. In this video, we will be going through lines 520 to 560 of Aeneid Book 1. Those lines contain the entire speech of the Trojan Ilioneus, who is speaking to Queen Dido, explaining the Trojan situation and asking for her help. This is going to be a bit of a longer video. As a result, there are 41 lines that we need to cover from 520 to 560. And so what I will be doing is using on-screen notes to cover some things that I might otherwise go over kind of briskly and quickly. And I will also be putting timestamps in the description of this video so that if you would like to, you can jump ahead to different portions or sections of Ilioneus' speech and focus in on those. This speech is very organized, it's very formal. And so we'll be looking at those sections and what Ilioneus is addressing in each part. And so it might be useful for you, especially if you're reviewing, to simply jump ahead to a later portion. So those timestamps will be in the description. All right, so let's go ahead and start. We've not skipped any lines. Dido has just come into the temple, sat down upon her throne, and begun doing leader things when Aeneas and Achates, who are still cloaked in that cloud, hiding in the corner, no one can see them, they spy their Trojan comrades, whom they believed were lost, possibly dead. Aeneas sees them coming into the temple and seeking an audience with Queen Dido. And that is where we pick up right here with postquam. So, post quintrogressiet coram data copia fandi. So in this first line, we see right away that our verbs are missing. There's a note here to tell us the actual verbs themselves. We have the participles, introgressi and data. Introgressi is missing a sunt, data is missing an est, and this is just setting things up. So after they, the Trojans, had approached, and the opportunity, copia fandi, the opportunity of speaking. Fandi is a gerund. It is in the genitive case. The verb is forfari, to speak. So the opportunity of speaking, datast, was given. Coram, this is an adverb, not an object, openly, face-to-face. So Dido is allowing them to speak in public. After that all happens, Maximus Ilioneus, and the note suggests that Ilioneus is Maximus because he is the eldest of the Trojan delegation, and therefore the one with the greatest authority who should speak. So Maximus Ilioneus placido sic pectore, from his calm, or with a calm heart. All right, so Ilioneus is not flustered, he's not agitated, he's very, very calm and centered. Ablative of manner, right here, placido pectore. The note suggests possibly ablative of description, totally fine. Coipit sic coipit, he began thus. And so right now we are going to get into his speech. And so let's see what he says. He starts off, this is the first portion of his speech, where he greets the queen and explains very, very briefly what it is the Trojans are after. O Regina, O Queen. These next two lines are a little formal and convoluted. The note does a good job of peeling this apart. We should start with cui Jupiter dedit. Okay, cui, of course, has Regina as its antecedent. So, O Queen, to whom Jupiter has given. Okay, Jupiter has given you something. Now we have to be careful here because this dedit is not, he did not give you the new city. All right, that novam urbem is an object, but it is not the object of dedit. The note tells us that this dedit is the kind of dedit we saw earlier with Aeolus when he was speaking to Juno. Jupiter gives to you, O Queen, the power to. Dedit leads us over here to condere, and then later to frenare, to the infinitives. All right, so this is dedit, give the opportunity or the power. So, O Queen, to whom Jupiter has given the ability to establish a new city and to rein in, we saw this verb with Aeolus as well, this is what Aeolus does to the winds, to rein in the haughty or arrogant or proud races with justice, right? Ablative of means. Okay, these gentes superbas, these are not obviously the Carthaginians because Dido does not have to reign in her own people. These are the neighboring African tribes who were here before Dido showed up, and with whom Dido has some difficult relations, right? She has to rein them in. She has to check them, curb them. So right away we see that Dido has some issues with the locals, which is going to be a factor later in the epic when we see Dido's decision to to woo and seek to join forces with Aeneas and the Trojans. So, having greeted the queen, Ilioneus continues, Troes miseri. And this is us, this is we, right? We see it down here with oramus, we. So, who are we? We are Trojans. We are miserable. We are wretched Trojans. We, the wretched Trojans. And then we're not done yet because we are also wecti, right? Perfect passive participle. We have been carried. We have been tossed even, perhaps. Ventis, by the winds, ablative of means. And then Maria omnia, and this is accusative, but it is not the object of anything. What we understand instead, as the note tells us, is per. It makes perfect sense. We have been carried over, through, all of the seas by the winds, right? We've had a very, very long trip. And so here we beg you, right? Oramus te, we beg you. All right, we beseech you. And then the next two lines, the rest of that is actually what the Trojans want. These verbs, as we see, proibe, parce, aspice, are all imperatives. But since we are begging or praying, we're not commanding the queen. We are simply asking. Keep off, right? Prohibit. Keep off the hateful fire from the ships. So we see right away that there's perhaps been a little problem with landing. We'll see more details in a bit here as Ilioneus continues. But also just a plea, don't attack us, all right? Don't attack us. Parce pio generi, have pity upon our, you might read a nostro in here, our pious people, or race, right? Our pious people. Pio generi is dative, right? We can see that because the verb parco parcere wants a dative, and the dictionary will tell you that, parco plus dative. And aspiceres nostras propios, right? So look at, right? Aspice, look at, consider our situation, nostras res. Consider our situation propius. This is a comparative adverb. Consider our situation more closely, more carefully. Don't dismiss us out of hand, please. Think more carefully about the situation that we find ourselves in. All right, so continuing on with Ilioneus' speech then, now we come to a different part where Ilioneus, these three lines right here, from non to ictis, Ilioneus is explaining that the Carthaginians have nothing to fear from the Trojans. So we start straight off, non nos, right? Straight away, we are not, okay? We are not. What are we not? Well, we can come down here to the verb venimus. We have not come, okay? We have not come. And then we have the rest of the line right here, out to penatis, and the rest of the line right here, out to pridos. These are the things that we have not come to do. Now, you see these infinitives here. They're actually behaving as purpose clauses, as if they were ut with a subjunctive. The note explains this in some detail. This is not typically how we use infinitives, but it is possible, and of course this is Virgil in poetry, so he's going to bend the rules. So we understand these are purpose expressions. What have we not come to do? We have not come either, and then we'll get the or down here, or neither nor. We have not come to devastate, populare. Watch out for false friends here. This does not mean to populate. This means here to devastate, to destroy. We have not come to destroy the Libyan penates. This is a bit of a metonymy. Your penates are your household gods, therefore your houses. We have not come to devastate the Libyan houses or people or gods with iron, okay, ablative of instrument, and of course meaning the sword. Nor, because we're negative here with the non, nor have we come to exchange or to seize stolen loot at the shore. Okay, so we have not come to conquer and we have not come to raid. All right, that is not our intent here. And how can Dido trust that that is not actually the Trojans' intent, well, this line covers it right here. There are verbs missing. There is an est missing that covers this whole line. So non est we understand. Ea vis animo. Nec est tanta superbia victis. So animo and victis here are datives, all right? Animo and victis are datives. And just like the common expression in Latin, nomen mihi est, right? My name is, there is a name for me, or I have a name. That's the kind of use that the datives are getting here. They're datives of reference, so there is no force for my soul or our soul. There is no arrogance, no such arrogance for us, the conquered. Okay? Which is a very fancy and elegant and formal way of saying we do not have force in our mind. We do not have arrogance because we are conquered peoples. All right, and this is speaking, of course, to the fact that they are Trojans. The Trojans, as everyone knows, have just spent 10 years fighting off the vastly superior forces of Greece by themselves. I mean, they had allies, but the Trojans got all the credit. And so it's perfectly reasonable, never mind the state of things in the Mediterranean at the time, it's perfectly reasonable for Dido to assume, yes, they're here to devastate us, they're here to raid us and loot us. But Ilioneus takes pains to point out that there is no such force or power in our souls, right? There is no such arrogance because we have been conquered, right? The conquered are not arrogant as that. And the use of this word, very quickly, the use of this word harkens back to before, where we saw that Dido was frenareing superbas gentes, right? So Dido has a history that Ilioneus has acknowledged of reining in people who get a little too arrogant or proud for their own good. And so Ilioneus addresses that point straight on. There is no such pride in us. We are conquered. So therefore Dido need not resort to force to get what she wants. Okay, so that is what we have not come to do. So what are we here to do, right? And that is where this next portion of the speech begins to, that is what this portion of the speech here begins to address. So now we move on to a different bit of the speech. Est locus. There is a place. We've seen this before. There is a place. This whole phrase then stands in apposition to the locus, right, describing the place. Graii dicunt Hesperiam cognomine. So the Graii, the Greeks, call it, the Greeks call it Hesperia, which simply means something like the land in the west, right? It's not actually a name of a place. It's just more of a geographic description. They call it Hesperia by name, right? Or even cognomen, by nickname, all right? And the note tells us that a cognomine here is technically an ablative of specification. Continuing on, terra antiqua, all right? We're still talking about the locus here. It is an ancient land, all right? Very, very old. And last thing about the locus, it is potens. So normally this would mean something like powerful, but we're talking about a place, not a person or group of people. So this would be something suitable or very, very fitting, okay, for armies, for arms, therefore for military affairs, for war. And it is also potens with its ubere gleibai, with the richness, ubere, the fertility of its soil. Okay, so the land is great for military-like people, right? Well known for arms or powerful in arms, but also powerful for the richness of its soil. And this is very, very true. There are iron mines in Italy, in the mountains, so thus potens armies, and of course the land in Italy for the most part is extremely rich and fertile, Sicily in particular. So these are things that every Italian, every Roman would swell with pride somewhat to hear this line read. Continuing on about the place, oinotriwiri. So the men of the Oinotrian men have lived there, coluere, this is coluerunt, of course. But now, so this was back in the past, perfect tense, coluere. Now, fama est, there's an est missing here again. So the story is, right, because the Trojans have not been to Hesperia, so they only know what the rumor is. The rumor is that, so we go here, everything from here on is in indirect speech. So the minores here is actually accusative, but as you can see, it is marked as the subject because it is the subject of dixisse. All right, so the rumor is that the minores, now these are not the smaller people, these are the younger people, therefore the descendants. Okay, so the rumor is that the descendants of the Oenotrians have called dixisse, just like we see dikunt up here, the Greeks call it Hesperia. Their descendants, the Oenotrian descendants, have called, perfect infinitive, have called their people, gentem, Italian, Italiam gentem. They have called their people Italian de nomine ducis, from the name of their leader. And the note explains that mythologically, according to the story that Ilioneus is telling, the leader of the Oenotrians, when they first settled there, was called Italus. So therefore, they named their race after him. Okay, moving into the next part of Ilioneus' speech, we continue on. Hic cursus fuit. This was our course. And then there's nothing. Now the note points out that this is the first of a handful of lines in the epic, in the Aeneid, that are unfinished. All right, this is not a gap in the manuscript or anything like that. The line was written like this. Some people say that this is just further evidence that the Aeneid was in fact unfinished when Virgil died. That's part of the rumor and the fama est, that the Aeneid was unfinished when Virgil died and he ordered it destroyed. Other people, though, myself included, I'm more sympathetic to this version of interpretation. Other people suggest that Virgil left these lines, these unfinished lines, in place intentionally because they tend to occur at moments of high drama or impact in the poem. So take it for what it's worth. This is not a typo. This is the whole line. This was our course. Notice fuit, the perfect tense, it was, but it no longer is. And then we find out why. Cum subitat surgens, right? When all of a sudden, ad surgens fluctu, rising from the wave, or on the wave, in the wave, nimbosus Orion, cloudy Orion. Now, why is Orion cloudy? Well, Orion, the constellation, is more visible in the northern hemisphere during the fall and winter months of the year. Therefore, Orion is associated linguistically, poetically, with storms, because fall and winter are the stormy seasons. So hence nimbosus, cloudy Orion. So rising from the wave, cloudy Orion, what did he do? He tulit. Okay, he carried, and you need to understand either a nos or a naves as the object of tulit. Either nos, just us, or nostras naves, our ships. So where did he carry our ships? Where did he take us? He took us in vada caeca, into unseen, caeca means blind, but in this case it means unseen shallows, and then all of this comes down here to dispulit. Orion scattered us. He scattered us, and here's this word again, penitus, deeply, but in this case it's probably something like thoroughly. He thoroughly scattered us. And then we have this ablative absolute here. With the auster, don't let the plural fool you, it's just the wind. With the auster procacibus. So this is something like bold or insolent or something like that. This is getting back to the character of the winds, who were way out of line when they burst forth from their prisons and did all of that stuff during the storm. So with the other winds, you can take it as the one auster, or you can just, as a plural, consider that it's standing in for all of the winds. With the rest of the winds being wanton or being out of control, the Orion thoroughly scattered us over the waves, or through the waves, and we'll come back to the ablative absolute in a second, and through the in via saxa. So these are, in via means pathless, okay? So there are no roads. Therefore, this is something like undiscovered or trackless. These are rocks where people don't go in Wea, because if people went there, there would be a Wea, right? That's what people do. They build roads. So pathless rocks, rocks where no one ever goes. And then this ablative absolute, salo superante, with the salt, which we know means the sea, with the salt overtopping us. And this, of course, is in reference to the giant waves that we read about that were crashing down upon the ships, etc., etc. So cloudy Orion did all of that, scattered us, bore us off into unseen shallows and scattered us through the waves, through the trackless rocks, while the winds were being out of control and the sea was overpowering us. And then hook, right? Just quite simply, to this place. So to here, pauki, just a few of us. We see that navimus, so we know it's us. Just a few of us have sailed, vestris oris, to your shores. This is dative, vestris oris, because of the prefix ad navimus. Okay? Very few of us have made it here. All right, so that covers their most recent adventures. Let's scroll down now and move on to the next portion of Ilioneus' speech, where he actually has some complaints about the way that he and his men have been received as they've arrived at the shore. So he asks these series of questions. Quod genus hoc hominum? All right, this is quod, not because, this is the question. What race of men, right? Hominum is genitive. We're going to read it with genus. What type of men, est is missing, is this? Right? What type of people are here, we might say in more colloquial English. What type of men is this type? What type of people are you? Quae vehunc, right? Quae vehunc tam barbara morem permittit patria. What, and here he's getting very convoluted, he's very upset. What such barbarian country permits this custom? Okay, he's very upset about something. There have been barbaric actions taken, apparently, because he asks, is this some kind of barbara patria, or are we civilized here? And what is his complaint? Well, his complaint basically is encompassed in this next line and a half. Prohibemur, we have been prohibited, we have been blocked from the hospitio of, harena is genitive, of the sand. So we have been forbidden. Hospitio is, in context here, means something like from the welcome of the sand. The idea is simple enough. We have not been permitted to land our ships. We have been driven off from the hospitality of the sand. But this word hospitio is very important because it means that whoever the Trojans ran into when they first sailed up to shore is, in a sense, very close to violating the laws of xenia, of guest friendship. You're not supposed to drive off people before you know more about them and consider if they're worthy of being driven off. So presumably the Trojans have offered no offense, but the Carthaginians or whoever has saw them sailing up has responded inappropriately by attempting to drive them off. And sure enough, we continue on. Bellacient, they have raised up war. All right, so not only were they not permitted to land, but they were attacked, potentially. And vetant, they forbid nos, right, us, consistere prima terra, to stand or to land, basically, on the first land. But of course, if we're coming from the ocean, the first land would just be the shore, right, ablative of place where. Okay, so thus we see why Ilioneus is upset. He and his men have been treated apparently very poorly by their reckoning. They have been denied hospitality. And so, of course, there is a consequence to that. This is very, very important because in the ancient world, hospitality was one of the key things protected by Jupiter. Si genus humanunt mortalia temnitis arma. So it gets a little saucy here. If you all despise the race of men, the human race, genus humanum, because the Trojans are human. So if you people scorn humans and mortalia arma, the weapons of men, because again, the Trojans are not defenseless, they could fight back. Asperate, so if you are dismissive of mankind and mortal arms. Well, right? On the other hand, sperate. This translation here, obviously, spero means hope, so he's telling them, hope. You should hope. But the sense here is more that almost like you should remember, or you should have some faith, all right? You should have faith that, we go into indirect speech here. You can read it that way, or you just read it as the object here. You should hope that the gods are memores, that the gods will remember. Fandi atque ne fandi. And the note tells us that we don't need to take these really as gerunds. They've lost most of their gerundish force, and they're just meaning something simply like right, from fas, and wrong. All right? So even if you Carthaginians, or whoever you are, even if you people scorn mankind and mortal arms, well, you should keep in mind that the gods will pay attention to right and wrong. So you should not be doing these things, is his admonition to the Carthaginians. All right, continuing on now. We're almost there. So now we come to a new section where Ilioneus describes a little bit more about the Trojan situation and explains what their ultimate goal could be. They have a couple options depending on what is up with Rex Aeneas. So, of course, first we need to introduce the man. So, Rex erat Aeneas nobis. Here's that dative again with erat, literally, King Aeneas was for us, but more colloquially, Aeneas was our king. Notice erat, right? Was, but imperfect tense. They don't know if he's dead yet, but he's not around. Quo, now this right here, this quo right here is a comparative ablative because of the comparative adjective justitior. So this is an ablative of comparison, and it is referring to Aeneas. And we, interestingly enough, frustratingly enough, we need to take the neck with all three of these things, okay? With quo justior alter, pietate fuit, and bello maior et armis, all right? So three things that there are not. There was not anyone else more just than him, Aeneas, nor was there anyone sort of who surpassed him. We read justitior with it, okay? Nor was there anyone better, we might say here, just to vary it up, than him, with respect, ablative of respect, with respect to pietas, right? With respect to piety, but we know pietas means more than that. Nor was there anyone greater, now we have a different comparative, greater than him, back to quo, in war and fighting, right? This could be considered a hendiades. We can just, in war fighting, we might say, but Virgil breaks it up through the hendiades, in war and in fighting. Of course, if you've read your Iliad, you know that this is nonsense. Aeneas was a non-factor in the Trojan War, at least in the Iliad. But now he's a big deal. Moving on. Quem, still Aeneas, and the note tells us that this quem is better understood as hunc, okay, because it is referring to Aeneas, but it's going with Wiram. So, if the fates have preserved this man, if he, now this verb is interesting. This vescor means something like to feed upon. So if he feeds upon, and it takes an ablative as its object, so aura aetheria is underlined as the object because it is, relative to this verb vescitur, but the case of aura aetheria is ablative. If he feeds upon the upper air, right? The aura is the air, and the aetheria refers to the upper part of the sky, so upper air. So in other words, if he's not dead. And then, of course, he says it. And if he does not yet lie dead, occubat, in the crudelis umbris, in the cruel shades, right? Or among the cruel shades, because the umbris can be the underworld itself or the ghosts that inhabit it. So if he's still alive, right, we take these two lines as one. If he's still alive, non metus. There's nothing to fear. We're fine. Okay, we're going to be totally fine. And then we have this little bit right here. Let's scroll down a bit so we see it a little more clearly. Then we have this bit right here, which is a little tricky to disentangle because of this impersonal verb down here, poeniteat. Some versions have paeniteat with an A, paeniteat. It's basically the same verb. We don't need to stress about it. This is an impersonal verb and it's subjunctive. So it would not pain you, or it would not, it would not make you sad or repent. The te is the object of poeniteat, but in English it's easier for us to read it as if it were the subject. So we in English might say, you would not regret. All right, it will not cause you to regret. And then we take kertase, to have, something like to have acted first. Now, priorum is modifying te, which is why they're both underlined. But we have to sort of wait on our understanding of priorum until we've gotten past kertase. So, once again, if he's still alive, no worries, right? Non metus, no worries. It will not cause you to repent, to have acted first in regards to or with respect to duty. Okay, officio. So the implication of this is that Aeneas will, if he's still alive, Aeneas will repay Dido in kind for her duties to the Trojans. So if Dido is kind to the Trojans, she will be repaid. Because again, as we saw up above, no one is greater than Aeneas in regards to pietas. So of course, Dido will not regret having been the first one to act, kertase, to have acted. So therefore, Dido, you should be nice to us, is essentially what he's getting at. At least that's how I read it. Okay, so moving on now, we move into an elaboration of the Trojan situation. Sunt et siculis regionibus urbes. So again, first word of a sentence, so we say with sum esse, we understand there are. There are indeed, or even, in the regions of Sicily, cities and arms. Ooh, is he making a threat? Is he threatening Dido? There are cities and arms in Sicily? Uh-oh. Trojano qua sanguine clarus acestis. What else is in Sicily? Not just urbes and arma, but also famous acestes from Trojan blood. Oh my, is this a threat or is it something else? Let's see. Okay, moving on then. Ilioneus continues on with liceat, and this is again another impersonal verb in the subjunctive. Liceat has a sense very similar to potest, right? To posse. So something like, if there is the ability, if it is permitted for us, there's a nobis that we understand, and also by you is the other, because he is speaking to Dido. So if you allow us would be the more colloquial way to handle liceat, but in Latin, if it is permitted by you for us. To subducere, to draw up, again, we see the sub again, meaning up, not down. To draw up our fleet, which has been quassatam ventis, shaken by the winds. And liceat, if it is permitted by you, for us to aptare, to equip, okay, or to furnish some timber from the forest, and to plane out, right? To make, if you know woodworking, planing is when you make something flat. So to make oars, basically, right? Which means planing the wood. So we would love your permission, right, basically, to bring our fleet up onto the shore, to get some wood from your forests and to make oars. And then, si datur, and here we are again with datur, and look, there's an infinitive, tendere. So we know that this datur is that same dodare that means if it is possible, or if permission is given. If it is possible for us to tendere Italiam, to head to Italy. All right, that's what they want to do. And then we have this ablative absolute explaining the condition under which, now this is actually a conditional ablative absolute almost, all right? If our allies and king are recovered. Okay, because as we will see in a second down below here, If they don't recover Aeneas and all of their lost comrades, they don't want to go to Italy. They actually want to go somewhere else. But we'll see that in just a second. So this is a conditional ablative absolute. If it is permitted to head to Italy, assuming our allies and king are recovered, then we shall seek happily, laiti is an adjective of course, but in English we might say happily, we will happily seek Italy and Latium. Okay, that is our plan if we get our king back. Scroll down a bit here. Sin. But if, on the other hand, but if salus absumpta, but if literally health, right? But in this case probably salvation or safety, and we are referring to the safety of Aeneas, right? Especially because everything right here is an apostrophe where Ilioneus now speaks directly to Aeneas, who is not there. He calls him the optime pater teocrum. So if hope is lost, basically, is what he's saying here. If salvation has been taken away, you can understand the S there if you like. And if the C is still in force, if the Pontus Libyae, if the seas of Libya, it's singular, I just translated it plural for poetic effect, if the sea of Libya holds you, and again, this is an apostrophe because Aeneas is not actually there. I mean, he is there, that's a bit of irony, but Ilioneus does not know that Aeneas is there, but yet he addresses him directly. And then he adds the vocative, pater optime teocrum, O best father of the Trojans. Again, reiterating that at this point in time, Aeneas basically is the king of Troy, despite, everything. If the sea of Libya holds you now, so if you're dead, if salvation is lost, if the sea holds you, if you're dead, and last thing, if there is if no hope of Iulus, this is Aeneas' son, if no hope of Iulus now remains, all right? So even if Aeneas is dead, maybe his son is still alive and it could all work out, but if that's not the case, well then, all right, what will we do? Petamus, right? Petamus. What will we do? We will seek, okay? What will we do? We will seek the Straits of Sicania. This actually should be underlined with a blue underline. We will seek the Straits of Sicily, okay? And we will do that, at least. We will at least seek the Straits of Sicily and the sedes paratas, the seats that are waiting for us there. Unde huc advecti, whence we, there's a sumos missing here, whence we came to this place, right? We just came from here, and we will seek Acestes as our king, right? So if Aeneas is dead and Iulus too, we will go back to Sicily and we will live with Acestes as our king. And so, with these werebeasts, we understand werebeasts, with these werebeasts, Ilioneus. And that's just it, right? He's finished now. So we understand Dixit, or something like that. With such words, Ilioneus spoke. Cuncti Dardanidai, all the rest of the Trojans, this is not a typo by the way, this is another incomplete line, all the rest of the Trojans, as one, roared with their mouths. So they all shouted their approval. And that is line 560 and the end of Ilioneus' speech to Dido. It's a bit of a doozy, but in our next video we will conclude with the AP readings for Aeneid Book 1 with Dido's response. So, gratias for sticking through it all, and walete.